part of our lesson on how to draw a charcoal portrait. I'm going to show you how to start putting down that first layer of like underdrawing, like with underpainting, when you actually build up those bigger areas without detail. That's what we're doing with this. Hello. So we're about to start this first layer. So I've already showed you how I've drawn up my outline using these little dotty, dashy kind of marks, and that's so that you are avoiding the line. Now, all you need to start on this next stage is you draw your image and a piece of willow charcoal. So willow charcoal is the charcoal that's, when you pick it up, it doesn't weigh very much. That's how you can tell. It's very light. So when it's made, it doesn't have a lot of glue or other binding agents that more compressed charcoal or that heavier charcoal has. And the thing that's really good about it, but also really bad about it, but it's good for this, is that it is unstable, which means you can move it around with your finger. And this is a smudgy, smudgy technique, which you know that I don't like you to use if you are using pencil or other materials. But in this actual technique, it's actually one of the main ways that you actually get the tone actually happening. So you are allowed to smudgy-wudgy with your finger and a smudging stick, but we won't worry about that yet. The drawing's quite big, so using a smudging stick when you're at this stage is not a good idea because you get all bogged down in details. And remember, like with when you start a painting, you do the big areas or the background sort of areas first, and then you kind of build up to the details on top. And it's the same with this type of drawing. So I'm actually going to start with the eye, because I like to start, sometimes I like to start with the nose and sometimes I like to start with the eye, but today I'm going to start with the eye. So I've got my source image in front of me, I've got my willow charcoal, and I've got my finger, and that is all that I need. So I'm going to make a start. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to the darkest tone, and I can see that it's in around this area of his eye on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like a little palette of tone. So you know when you paint and you've got a palette and it's got little dots of paint on it, and you use those paint, you spread that paint to spread around. I'm actually going to create something like that with my charcoal. Okay, so I'm just going to do, and I hope you can see what I'm doing, I'm just adding in a tiny, it almost looks like a worm, to tell you the truth. Can you see that little wormy shape that I've done there? I've been very bold. I've done it as dark as I possibly can. And you know what? I'm not worried about that, because that is my little palette that I'm going to use my finger to spread. So that's my darkest part, and I can see on my drawing that there's a mid-tone that comes up above that and a mid-tone that comes in below that. So I'm actually going to use my finger to start to spread this little blob of tone up in this upward direction where I need to start to do that. Now, and then I'm moving it down as well. Okay, now it's knocked it back quite a bit. It's not as dark as it was. That's okay, I can build it up again, and this is only my first layer, okay? But there's been no lines drawn. There will be no lines drawn ever in this drawing. Well, maybe right near the end, if you've got some hair, you might have some lines, but let's not go there just yet. Okay, so really, all I'm using to spread this tone is that first little bit of blob that I made, and also I can pick up a bit of the tone from the little dotty dashy kind of lines that I made. Oh, not lines, sorry. They're like little walking ants. Those little lines, little dashes that I made before. Okay, now there's a bit of shadow down under his eye. So again, I'm building up that area like that. It's a little shape, it's not a line. Okay, and I'm going to start to blend that. And the secret of blending is to blend it in the direction of the curve of that shape. So if you kind of think about all of the areas of the face being separate little three-dimensional shapes. So like, for instance, your lips are a shape that go around like that. So you would do the line like that. Your nose, this part of your nose kind of comes around like that. So you would do that shape like that. So everywhere there's a little shape. There's a little, like here, for instance, you would go around like that. And here you would go around like that. So you're always following the contour or shape of the lines that are on your face. And that's why it's really good not to start with an old person, because wrinkles are all just millions and millions of little shapes, really. And if you were to start that off without having kind of got the hang of this, then you really set yourself up for some hard work. Now, if you ever think you're going too dark with the willow, you should never panic, because you're able to take it back with your squidgy rubber at any time. Just trying to work out, there's some weird shapes going on in his eye here. And I'm not worrying about detail. All I'm worrying about is tone and shadow at this stage, because this is just my under layer. Never a line. See, I'm doing little squiggly circles. It's never going to be a line. And even though I've got the guidelines here on my drawing that I did with the overhead projector, I never completely rely on those. I'm always looking back at my source image. See how I'm tapping? Now if you tap, what that does is it lets you keep it quite light, because you're not actually rubbing it. You're just tapping it in. People often think that the whites of the eyes are white. They're actually rarely white. They usually have a bit of tone. So there's nothing wrong with putting a little pale tone in where that eye is going. Tops of the eyelids, I mean, in this case he's got quite a solemn look on his face, so his eyes are quite it's almost partially closed, but the top of the eyelids usually hidden by, well, it is, you can see on my eyes, they're hidden by the top of your eyelid, and the bottom of your iris touches, or the colour part touches the bottom of your eye. If you don't have it kind of touching and going under, you get this I'm scared look, which you don't want to get. Unless you're drawing a portrait of someone who's scared. Which will probably not be a good place to start, because, ooh, almost did a line there. And if I was to do a line, then it wouldn't be suiting what I'm trying to do. So still using my finger, good old finger. Okay, I'm going to bring you in and show you a bit of a close-up for this now.